story simply called The Clever Farmer's Daughter. And it's really about riddles and playing with words, and it's a lot of fun. There was also a farmer and a daughter who was so poor that they went to the king and said, "We have nothing." And the king granted them a little piece of land on the heath. And so the father and daughter worked very hard and dug over the heath. And as they dug and dug, they found a golden mortar. So this isn't golden, but this is a mortar. And the farmer said, "We should give the gold from the heath to the king, because this is still his land." And the daughter said, if we give the king the mortar, we will expect the pestle as well, because a mortar is no good without a pestle. And the king thought that he should do the right thing. So he went to the castle and he gave the golden mortar to the king. And the king said, "What other treasure is there on the glittering heath? Bring me the pestle that goes with the mortar." But the man said, "There is no pestle. We only found the mortar." The king didn't believe him and threw him into prison. And every day when the guards took him his bread and water, they heard him saying, "Why didn't I listen to my daughter? Why didn't I listen to my clever daughter?" And after some time, the guards took the news to the king that this was what the man was saying. The king was intrigued, so he sent for the farmer's daughter, and he said, "I'll give you a riddle. Come to me, neither naked nor clothed, neither on a horse or on a road. If you can fulfill all those things, I will marry you." So the daughter went home, took off all her clothing, so she was in fact naked, then took a fishing net and wrapped it round herself, so she was no longer naked but no longer clothed. And she hired a donkey, and she tied the fishing net to the donkey, so that, I can imagine it, she's sort of hanging on the back of the donkey, and only her toes touched the ground. So she was not on a horse, she was not walking, she was not on the road. So she presented herself to the king, who said, "Well done, you solved the riddle. You are, as your father said, very clever." So they married. The farmer was released from prison. And there came a day when the king went out, as was his wont every morning, to inspect his garden. And as he did so, going past were some farmers, and some of them were drawing carts with oxen, some of them were drawing carts with horses. And as they stopped outside the castle, a mare gave birth to a foal. But the foal stood up and ran to between two of the oxen. So there was a fight between the men as to who could lay the best claim to the foal. And they took their dispute to the king. And the king said, "Let the foal belong to wherever it lay, even though the man who owned the mare said, but oxen cannot give birth to foals. Now the man who owned the horse was not a rich man, and he sought the help of the queen, the farmer's daughter. And she said, this is what you need to do. Find a fishing net. Go out to the parade ground where the king inspects his guards in the morning and throw the net as if you're fishing on dry land. So he did this, and the king sent a messenger to ask, what is that fool doing? And the messenger came back with a message from the man saying, he is fishing on dry land, your majesty. Because if an oxen can give birth to a foal, then it is possible to fish on dry land. And the king was very angry and demanded of the man who had told him this answer, and he refused to say until the guards beat him, and he admitted that the answer had been given to him by the queen. So the king went to his wife and said, our marriage is over, you can return to your farmhouse. You have made me look a fool. But you can take one thing from the castle, the most valuable thing to you. So the queen sent for a sleeping potion. And as they drank one last drink together, the king drained his cup, but the queen took only a sip. The king fell into a deep slumber from which he could not be awoken. The queen sent for a fine linen sheet and had her husband wrapped in the fine linen, placed in a carriage, and the two of them went to her father's little cottage on the heath. And when the king awoke the next day, he was very confused to find himself not in his own castle. But then when he awoke next to his wife, she said, you told me to take the dearest and most valuable thing, and my husband, that is you. So, with tears in his eyes, the king kissed the queen and they returned to the castle, because an oxen cannot give birth to a foal. And they lived, and this is your line, you do this one, come on, or we can all do it together. You ready? And they all lived happily ever after. As I hope from all of you, and I do hope to see you again soon. Take care.